Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Let's Talk Astrology. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by esteemed astrologer, author, lecturer, and researcher Ehsan Khazeni. We're very excited to have Ehsan as part of our new medieval certificate here at KeplerCollege. So, thank you so much for joining us today. And how are you doing?
Thank you for having me.
So today we're primarily going to be talking about the lots, also known as the Arabic parts. Now, most of you are probably familiar with the part of fortune, the part of spirit. These are the lots we're going to primarily are going to be talking about today, but Ehsan is also going to be talking about the lesser known ones, like the lots of marriage, lots of love, all the different lots that many people may be not familiar with. So Ehsan, you've put together a fantastic presentation, so let's dive in.
Thank you so much. So we can begin with the name itself, part, lot, Arabic parts or Arabic lots. And sometimes in Arabic, it's called Qur'a, and sometimes it's called in Persian Sahm, and in Arabic also it's called Sahm, and the plural form is Saham. And so each of them has a meaning, and all of them actually refer to the same concept, but from different point of views. So, for example, the Persian term sah means the arrow. So when we have a very sharp rain, a hard rain, we say the rain is like the arrows. So it's the sahm, like the sah. And in Arabic also, and in Persian, we also call it portion. Like, for example, my portion of food, my portion of, let's say, heritage or whatever. So this portion is also like a portion of a circle. And then in Arabic, it's also known as an arrow, which had been used in lottery. And it's a kind of, bringing something out of chance to show a kind of chance. And interestingly, there is another science beside astrology, which is called geomancy. It's actually considered as child of astrology because it also has the figures like the planets, it has the houses, and it has the signs in it, and all the astrological concepts are in that science. And they use some kind of dices, a specific kind of dices like this. And this is also called Qur'an. So we roll the dice and we throw the dice and it shows us the thing. So either you throw an arrow or either you hit a certain point. These are all the same concepts actually we have. And even in the constellations, you see here, it's a constellation of the arrow and it's written here, Sakam, like actually some Latinized form of the word which is the same arrow. This is the arrow that hits the Aquila. And so the concepts are the same and related to the like the arrow. And also in Persian, it's the chord of a circle, which is a straight line segment whose endpoints would lie in a arc on the circle. And it's like an arc. It's like the arc you can a bow that you can actually put an arrow in it. So this all the concepts are looking very similar. And we have some definitions how we create these parts, how we calculate them. So first, they are about the subjects. For every subject, there is a sah that helps in judgment, and it is the distance of two planets added to the ascendant. So sometimes it's two planets, and sometimes it's each of them can be a planet or ascendant or cusp of a house or lord of the hour. So we can use the planetary hours to create the sah or lord of the sect. So it might be sun or the moon. If it's in the daytime, the diurnal chart, we take sun, the degree of the sun. And if it's the nocturnal chart, we take the degree of the moon. And sometimes we take the CZG point, which is the conjunction or opposition of the sun or the moon, the new moon or the full moon before the birth, prior to the birth. And sometimes it's consists of another lot. So we can put one lot inside another, like the mathematical functions. We first calculate some primary parts, and then we put that part into the formula of another part. For mundane astrology, we use the previous conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn point. So, for example, zero Aquarius in the case of our time, because the previous conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn was on zero Aquarius. So we have some mundane parts which which have one of its points as zero Aquarius. Sometimes we have certain point like 15-degree Leo or 15-degree Cancer. Again, if according to the sects, but there are fixed points. And sometimes we use the exaltation degree of the ruler of sect. For the diurnal charts, we take 19 Aries, and for the nocturnal charts, we take 3 Taurus. So these are the different and a huge variation of the parts. And astrologers usually agreed on some set of parts, but there are also a lot of variations created by some astrologers for certain reasons. And usually the three planets which involved has a related meaning to the concept actually we are referring to. So we have a very simple formula. For example, for the part of fortune, which is the most famous part, and it is from sun to the moon adds to the ascendant. The formula is the distance from sun to the moon adding to ascendant. And if we take sun as A and the moon as B and ascendant as C, the simple formula is B minus A plus C. And this is the formula for the daytime. And then for the nighttime, for the nocturnal, we usually have a general exception. Most of the parts, most of the sounds, actually we change the place of A and B. So this is B minus A, and this is A minus B. It's very interesting, very similar to the formula of the triplicities. If you remember, the first triplicity and the second ruler of the triplicity are swapping. So this is the same formula here, the same logic here.
A quick question on the part of fortune, because as you mentioned, it is nowadays the most popular lot or part that we think of when we pop up a chart and you see the part of fortune. Has this historically always been the case? Is it more of a recent phenomenon, or how has this developed to be one of the most popular parts or lots to look at?
That's a very good question. If we go back historically, according to Biruni, Abraham Biruni, a very prominent astrologer, Iranian astrologer, he mentions that Ptolemy used this part of fortune always for the day, and the reverse formula always for the part of unseen or part of esprit or for part of daemon, as some colleagues say. They use that for the always the same formula for both day and night. And later, the astrologers swapped the day and night. So part of fortune for the day is a part of esprit for the night, and vice versa. So, but he also mentions that Hermes created 7 parts, and some other astrologers created some limited number of parts. And but on the time of Abu Mashar, we have a full set of parts, which Biruni himself narrates, and I have the list of them for every session. And then he also mentions that our uh, modern astrologers, and by modern astrologers, actually, he means the uh, astrologers of 1,000 years ago. He says our modern astrologer exaggerated in creating the parts, because actually they created the parts for onion, the parts for tomato, the part for wheat, the part for for every food they created the part, a formula for that. And it was the need, I believe, it was the need of that time, like in the modern times, actually, when we talk about the modern concept of our time. At that time, actually, they were trying to do the market in the general every year, actually they were calculating the abundance or famine, like lack of some kind of materials, or the damages might bring come to the rice, for example, to the rice, to the wheat, or whatever. So they were calculating all these, and for the prices, and also a kind of market prediction. So it was the thing actually they had a need for. So they invented this kind of formulas. But Biruni was critical for that, and he said, "Okay, do not, over exaggerate on these kind of parts." But we have a full list of them, and also after that, actually, they created the parts for mind reading. For in the horary charts, they created some parts for what is in the mind of the questioner. What are some parts for the sadness of the questioner, for the fear of the questioner, for the hope of the questioner, and all these. Uh, for horary, actually, they made a lot of these kind of parts.
Well, thank you for the explanation. That's a lot of lots.
Yeah, exactly. And for the lot, actually, I think that part of fortune is the name of fortune is comes from the lot as the chance, fortune, because the lot itself also means fortune in case of the lottery. And I think actually by lot by their lot they means actually the fortune. So it's a kind of uh, parallel, actually double meaning of part of fortune is the fortune of fortune. So this is a very simple formula for those who want to calculate that. It's very easy. You just need to convert the planetary longitude to the ecliptical longitude from 0 to 360. And here, for example, it's moon minus sun plus ascendant. So moon is 2 degree of Pisces, which is 332. And sun is 18 Taurus, which is 48. And ascendant is 20 uh, Virgo, which is 170. So if we do this simple math, we get 453. And actually reduce 360, it remains 93. So the part of fortune will be 3 degree of Cancer. And the part of the spirit is usually the opposite side. If we vertically go down, we find the part of a spirit. And these two, and there is a very interesting relationship between these two on the horizon. This is the story. If we say it's moon minus sun, and if we have sun and the moon in the same degree, this parameter will be zero. So the result will be the ascendant. So at the new moon, we always have both part of fortune and part of the spirit on the ascendant. So this is the magic moment that the part of fortune and part of a spirit meets the horizon. So, and it's everywhere on the world. So, doing meditations, doing the prayers of the new moon, doing some rituals always works here because the fortune is on the horizon. And then slowly, as the moon uh, creates some distance, goes far away from the sun, with the same distance, one of the parts goes upward and one of the parts goes downward. So they go with the same ratio, with the same state. And then again, when we have the most distance uh, between sun and the moon, there is an opposition, the full moon. Both of them are in the cusp of seventh house. Again, they are on the horizon.
What
So,
is, in your experience, the significance? Maybe we have audience members watching this, those who are born maybe on a new moon and full moon. What is the significance of having the part of spirit, the part of fortune connected together? Do you find what in terms of delineating a chart, what comes to mind? Of course, you have to talk about sign and relationships to other planets, but just in general, what does that mean for you in your experience?
well, I have some examples in the next
Oh,
slides about not only having them in the first house, but also for any of us in some certain years in our solar return chart. If we have a new moon or full moon in the solar return chart, that year is very specific for us. So when I teach this, I ask my students just go and watch every year by year, very quickly. Just explore and see at what years actually you have these. And that year is a very wonderful year for you, a very different year for you, because this is the year. And for those who already have these parts in the first house, Biruni says that they have wonderful intuitions and they can be great astrologers because have they have the ratio distance of sun and the moon in the first house, and they can actually be connected to the unseen. They can see what the others cannot see. And part of fortune in the first house is also very important because it gives the fortune directly to you, your fortune, and you are very connected. And then these uh, also, an integrated self is revealed by harmonious relationship between the sun and moon and ascendant. So, if actually you have a good distance between your sun and your moon, if, for example, they are in trine, so the same trine will be in ascendant and part of fortune. If they are in a sextile, your part of fortune will be in the ninth house or in the fifth house. The same harmony. So it also is in harmony between your sun and the moon. And if your part of fortune falls on a certain star, a certain fixed star or certain planet, it also has a good meaning. And sometimes it might be damaged by another planet. So, for example, it's better to be on the benefics. Okay, so this is during the new moon and full moon, planets in the first and seventh house are extremely important. If they are benefic, they bestow the results which are good and end up with good. And if they are malefic, they bestow the results which are good and made end up tragic. So we should be very careful that it might be good at first, but might end up tragic. And I have some examples next. But it's also very important that in electional astrology, if we want to do some election, we want to use that time, during that some 12 hours, that some 24 hours that the moon and sun are very close. So actually we have the part of fortune and many signs and many degrees are coming to the first house, but the part is still there. So we can look up to find some certain points of our chart, find the part of fortune on our planet on ascendant. So we can use that as a electional chart. Yeah, electional astrology is very interesting in medieval astrology because we are determined by the planets theoretically, and we have no choice against the planets, but we use the same planets who limited us to find a choice. So find it's like getting permission from them to uh, doing something we want.
Talking about that slide before, when it was talking about the malefics and the benefics in the first and seventh house, is that speaking to the angularity of the houses? And you talked there about electional astrology. So, as far as I understand it, we try and keep the malefics away from the angles if possible, and the benefics in the angles to give that extra strength. So, is that really just talking about the angularities?
Exactly, exactly. There's one exception, which that exception is that sometimes we want to do something which is related to the malefics. So if the planet that signifies our election, it can be a malefic as well. So it's very interesting. So when the new moon or full moon happens, look at the sign the parts are in an exactitude. So that at the very exact moment of new moon or full moon, we looked at not the sign, and we know that the ascendant changes very quickly. See what sign they are in. Check the signs in your chart and focus on your goals accordingly. So you can actually put the ruler of your second house. If you want to do some trade or you want to buy something or sell something, you look at the ruler of your second house, and the time it rises, it's on the part of ascendant of the moment. And for the eclipses, if it happens on the part of fortune or luminaries, serious illness or external dangers may possible. So if any kind of eclipse happens on your natal part of fortune, and if it happens or part of a spirit, damage to the spirit, inner powers, and decrease of sense of decision, mind, and intellect is possible. So these are some warnings that mentioned about this.
What
And
is it
this part,
apart? What's the rationale with the eclipses being a bad omen if it's connected to the part of fortune or the part of spirit? Why did they think that was an issue?
well, because they actually cut the light, they cut the light of the luminaries. Yeah. So uh, just in the next few slides, I will explain about the Hilaj or Hyleg, the bestowers of life. And there I will explain how the network of the Hilaj actually is a constant source of the energy, constant source of life in our for us. And there actually this eclipse damages the whole network. So this is very interesting. Who supports you? It's from one of the manuscripts. Part of fortune in exaltation sign of sun, which is Aries. The person is supported by king, sultan, leaders, boss, and superiors. And if it's in Libra, supported, which is Saturn, ruler of Saturn, exaltation sign of Saturn, supported by elders, old people, and farmers. If it's in the sign of Cancer, which is the exaltation of Jupiter, supported by nobles, knowledgeable and educated people, judges, and gurus, and spiritual masters, and all this. If it's in the Capricorn, exaltation sign of Mars, supported by military men, police leaders, athletes, and if it's in Pisces, exaltation sign of Venus, supported by ladies, the wife, the musicians, artists. If it's in Virgo, exaltation of Mercury, supported by writers, business people, uh, officials, and if it's in the exaltation of the moon, uh, which is Taurus, supported by ordinary people, messengers, ministers, knowledgeable people, and so on. And in domicile also signifies the same people, but exaltation is more, uh, it's really interesting because we less think about the sign of exaltation of the planets, but in medieval times, uh, they were, for example, if they are talking about Jupiter, they do not only look at Sagittarius and Pisces, they also look at the Cancer. And sometimes they first look at the Cancer in analysis of Fardar, Firdaria. We first go to the sign of exaltation, and then we go to the domiciles.
Fascinating. And I did not know this, but I have my part of fortune in Cancer. So, in terms of exaltation, we're looking at Jupiter. And it's quite interesting that I'm supported by very knowledgeable and educated people like yourself speaking to you today. So, I just found that was quite fascinating.
Thank you. Yeah. So, Ali Shah Bukhari from 11th century, he says, two people having the same part of fortune can fulfill the common goal because they have the same hopes. So if another person have part of fortune in Cancer, like I myself, and you also have it in Cancer, and right now Jupiter is transiting over Cancer, and we actually like this statement. We have the same part of fortune can fulfill the common goal because actually we have the same hopes. Yeah, a good example of
Amazing is
we
that?
two.
I did not know this before the recording, but just look at the synchronicity there. Absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. And then actually, I noticed two people with the same part of unseen come together to fulfill a common goal because they are guided by unseen. So let's talk about the difference of part of fortune and part of unseen because they have the same formula, and part of fortune for the day is the part of unseen for the night. So actually, uh, they have the same formula. So part of fortune is a kind of fortune that you deserve and you know that you deserve. Okay, like you're an astrologer and you want to be appreciated as an astrologer. You are an artist and you want to win Grammy. Uh, but part of unseen is that something you deserve but you don't know, something that is planned for you, but you don't know that. So it's like you're an artist and you actually expect to win the Grammy, but you get the Nobel of Literature for some of your lyrics.
So it's something that's unexpected, but is an amazing achievement, it sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So if part of fortune actually brings us together, we work on a astrology project. You and I work on an astrology project together. Maybe we write a book together. Maybe we do some workshops together. But it's part of fortune, and we know what we uh, hope for. But if I have part of unseen with someone else, maybe someone comes and convince me to buy some share of his company, and that share brings me a lot of money. So, like somebody comes to you in 2006 and asks you, "Hey, buy some Bitcoin," and yeah, you know,
I wish I did.
yeah. So this is actually part of unseen. The way part of unseen is different from part of fortune. Both are the fortune, but the way the unseen works is not what you expect in your life. It's from some other plans. Yeah. So we have a formula. We have a foundational concept called Hilaj or Hyleg. Uh, I usually give you the both names, both pronunciation of the Persians and Arabs, as well as the common pronunciation in the West. So we call it Hilaj, the source of life. So Hilaj basically is the sun. Sun is the source of life, and this is a very obvious thing that all the source of life in the planet is the sun. But if for any reason sun also can actually deliver its light to the moon. So moon is also uh, the messenger of the sun. It can deliver the light of the sun to us. And then CZG is the time that sun and the moon come together. It's like the time the parents are uh, together, they are mating, and uh, it's the moment that actually the child is getting born. So it's like an epoch for a child. So sun and the moon together bring to come together and CZG. So when parents meet in a certain way, the child borns, and the CZG chart. A planet in CZG chart is always on the same degree of your ascendant. This is a very secret formula of rectification in medieval times. Look at the uh, chart of CZG, the previous new moon or the full moon of yours, and then you find a planet on the same degree of your ascendant if you have your exact ascendant. And and then part of fortune is also the same distance of the moon added to you. Uh, light of sun and the moon added to you. And the degree of ascendant is also, as I said, is a part of CZG. So these five are the five sources of life. So astrologers have some formulas to validate or invalidate some of these. So they check each of them according to the houses and the signs to be valid, and according to their ruler of the bound and how they actually related to the ascendant, to find one of them as the most important Hilaj. And also, they find another planet which is called Kat Khoda or Al Kalkodon. That Hilaj is like the wife, and Kat Khoda or Al Kalkodon is the husband. And then these two, like this spirit and the body, and they have some formulas to give you the number of the years you can live with this kind of source, this amount of source. Uh, so they estimate the length of life using this formula. So the part of fortune is one of them. So it's that important to know that it can be one of the five sources of life. And then yes, as to be eligible, Hilaj should be aspected by one of the following rulers: ruler of domicile, exaltation, bound, triplicity, or face. One of the five dignities. So one of these should aspect the planet. It's like the woman that should be uh, taken by one of these five, supported by one of these five. So Kat Khoda is one of these five for Hilaj. It's a very interesting formula. We can actually have a session for this. Uh, it's very interesting.
So not only
So
you're bringing up the formula Of course, we're talking about, when you're talking about length of life, you're literally talking about the sun, the giver of light, the vitality, the moon, which is often, the moon is very important in medical astrology, for example. The ascendant, we're literally talking about the body. And now you're bringing in the importance of dignities. So whether that's by domicile, exaltation, the bound, triplicity, and face, making sure that these connections are hopefully fortunate for the native and the couple for that source of life and length of life.
Yeah, exactly. And I should tell you that these five are everywhere in medieval astrology. For the sahams, for the parts, we also check these five for every part if we want to go to into deep analysis. Uh, and then a question arises here. Sometimes when we talk about the mathematics, the astrologers of medieval times were able to do, we sometimes, I always doubt, did they really able to do all these mathematics, all these calculations at once? And then I was denying. I was thinking maybe because no, nowadays we have a computer that immediately calculate all these things for us. But on that time they didn't have calculators like us. But then I got acquaintance with Astrolabe. I started to work with Astrolabe, and then I noticed these calculations are very easy to be done. Not only these calculations, you can do the progressions like rotating the different parts of astrolabe. You can immediately find different kind of progressions, perfections, directions, and uh, converting any ecliptical to the equatorial system. You can find any dignity, and we have several kinds of astrolabes. I noticed that we have two general types of astrolabes for observing astrologers, and astrolabes for practical astrologers. So sometimes they use the astrolabe to measure the stars and find the altitude of the planets and finding the ascendant, the over planetary overlap, all these. And sometimes they putting astrolabe on his lap and then just rotating them to find the dignities, the degrees, and all these. So uh, one is like the observational tool, and the other, which is the same but with different configurations, different lines, and different plates for astrological calculations. And we have this in our medieval essentials class. So uh, it was so easy, and they can perfect all this progress, all the uh, sahams, all the parts, and they can actually immediately do all the calculations for any primary and secondary point of the chart. So we are going to see how to delineate a part. A part is considered well placed when placed in angular houses, placed in a proper house and sign, and it's well placed in a good bound and well dignified, in conjunction with other related parts, in conjunction with other related planets, and in conjunction with bright fixed stars. And of course, the fixed stars on the nature of benefics. So, uh, in medieval astrology, every fixed star is on the nature of one planet. Uh, and sometimes they are on the nature of two planets. So, for example, one fixed star is on the nature of Mercury and Jupiter, or Venus and Mars. So even two parts being at the same place are can be analyzed, and we should see how the ruler of the bound works. So ruler of the bound is very important in medieval astrology. We usually ignore that, but uh, bound shows the limits, how limited we are in some certain subjects. And if the ruler of the bound is powerful, then we have less limitations. If the ruler of the bound is hurt, we have many limitations or disappointments. If it's benefics, usually we have more hope, and we are more free to do things. If it's malefic, we may have more hardship uh, according for that certain subject. And also the aspects for the parts are very important.
Just a
Okay,
quick couple of
so
questions using myself as an example. What house systems are we talking about here? So, for example, my part of fortune in Cancer is in the 10th house whole sign, but in all of the quadrant house systems, it's in the ninth. So, is there a particular house system you would go with for that to look?
yeah, that's a very good question. Actually, there are three major house systems in medieval times, in Persian and Arabic books. Usually, we have three house systems. In modern times, actually, we name the house systems after some certain people like Placidus, Campanus, or Regiomontanus, and so on. But at that time, actually, they have astronomical meanings. Three of them, which is uh, like the model of Alcapitus, the model of Placidus, and the model of Campanus. These three are major ones and mostly astrological ones. And then we have actually the whole sign houses as well. But we have certain criterias when to use whole sign houses and when to use quadrant houses. So it's very important to know these parts because sometimes they say it should be both on both whole sign and quadrant, and sometimes they tell you that it doesn't matter. When they talk about the houses, usually they talk about the quadrant houses, and when they use the term sign, they usually use the signs. And for example, for Hilaj, when elements are involved, whenever the elements and dignities are involved, the whole sign is more important. But when the distances or the progressions involved, actually we use the quadrants houses. And then it also related to the version of the progressions. There are some sets of techniques should be used together. So you should carefully choose the coordination. If you do the progressions uh, on the actually in the way that the Alcapitus houses are made, you should go through that coordination. So you should choose the house system according to model of your progression. So yes, I already mentioned this, that part of fortune shows what you know you deserve, and part of a spirit shows what you deserve but you don't know. And this is also important that part of fortune works like the ruler of the sect, and part of spirit works like the ruler of the other sect. So if we are in a diurnal chart, part of fortune works like the sun, and part of spirit works like the moon. And if it's a nocturnal chart, part of fortune works like the moon, and part of spirit works like the sun. Okay, so there's a very question. Many astrologers, specifically those who want to start astrology, usually ask this question. They're obsessed about, can I be a good astrologer or not? And then uh, in some texts, actually, it's written one who has part of unseen, an ascendant, one who has Jupiter with part of unseen, or Jupiter in angular houses, or Jupiter in ninth house, or associated with the ninth lord, specifically in the ninth house, or uh, and a benefic in ascendant and aspected by Mercury from ninth or third house. And his readings can be correct, although doesn't have enough technical knowledge. It's really interesting. Sometimes you see a new astrologer, someone who started to learn astrology very shortly, can give you some very certain predictions that very true. So these combinations actually help the intuition of astrologer. And this seventh house is very interesting. In horary astrology, uh, uh, when you want to answer a horary chart, uh, if actually you have a doubt is if you have the correct answer or not, you look at the seventh house. The first house is the questioner, and the seventh house is the astrologer. So if the seventh house ruler is powerful and seventh house has a good aspects and good planets there, your prediction can be, you can actually trust your prediction. If it's harmed, if its ruler is, for example, debilitated or retrograde or in a bad house, you should be more careful about your rule. You may actually postpone answer, or you may do not give the sharp answer.
A lot of these overlap. Let me ask you a question here. When you've got Jupiter with the part of the unseen or part of spirit, now here we're looking in terms of orb. So how close are we talking about when we say with? Is it within 1 or 2 degrees? How far do we go?
Yeah. Orb is usually 5 degrees.
Five
The
degrees?
more
Okay.
closer, the better. Yeah. Okay, so the question is when we use the parts, we can use them in natal chart, in query charts, in solar returns, in progressions, in perfections, in Fardar when you analyze the Fardars, and everywhere in every area of astrology that you use the planets, you can also, when you have the planets, you can also have the parts. So they have a very large variety of usages, and then we go to the part of seven planets according to Hermes. The first one is part of fortune, which usually considered part of the moon. It's moon minus sun plus ascendant. That then we have part of unseen, uh, or part of esprit, or sometimes part of diamond, as Hellenistic astrologers say. It's sun minus moon, the reverse formula for the part of fortune. We have part of Mercury, which is part of buying, selling, writing, and learning. Uh, and this is also part of, uh, it says it's a part of uh, richness and poorness. Usually they say it's a part of poorness and richness. And then they drop, because it was too long, they drop the richness. They usually say the part of poorness. But when we see part of poorness, we should know it's a richness and poorness. So uh, then we have the part of Venus, which is the friendship, trust, loss, joy, and also part of uh, alliance and fellowship. Part of courage, braveness, and fight for the Mars. And its formula is interesting. It's fortune minus Mars plus ascendant. Uh, it's like actually reducing the malefic results of the Mars from the fortune and add it to the ascendant. And then part of victory for Jupiter is Jupiter minus unseen plus ascendant. And then part of Saturn, part of foresight and wisdom. And sometimes it's also part of imprisonment. Uh, this is part of Saturn. And then I categorize them. Actually, we have 7 parts for 7 planets, 3 parts for ascendant, 12 parts related to the second house, and 3 parts for third house. And for each house, we have some number of parts related to the subjects of the house. And then we have some independent parts and parts related to the conjunctions. These independent, I mean, actually, they are not related to these 12 houses, or sometimes the combination of some houses. We have the part of conjunctions for the conjunctions of Jupiter and Saturn. They are for the mundane use. We have some certain parts we use for solar returns and new moons or full moons. And we have market parts, part of prices, and certain parts for the queries. So we can quickly review. Uh, for example, for the first house, we have the part of life and part of pillar of horoscope, or part of reasoning, or for second house, for example, part of property, part of debt, treasure trove, and for the third house, brothers, number of brothers, days of brothers and sisters. Because when we talk about the brothers and sisters, we have many brothers and sisters, and uh, in modern times, actually, families are small, but in ancient times, yeah, so many, uh, 12, 15, something like this. And then for the fourth house, for example, parents and their parents, grandparents, ancestors and relations, ancestors and sometimes actually we have several parts for the same. Actually, no, not this one is. doubled, but sometimes we have several parts for certain subjects. So here, for example, for a marriage, we have marriage of woman by Hermes and marriage of woman by Valence, or marriage of men by Hermes and by Valence. So uh, these two actually gave two different formulas. Sometimes uh, uh, we have two parts for a certain subject. And for son in law, for example, for lawsuits, we have some parts, and for the eighth house, and for the ninth house, 10th house. And then these are not assigned to the houses. So, for example, we have part of Hilaj. It's very similar to the Hilaj point we calculate, but we also have a part of Hilaj. And this S and R is that S is the same for day and night, and R is reversed for day and night. By reverse, it means actually we switch the first and second parts. And these are the sort part of Sultan, for example, Jupiter plus MC of the return chart. So it's for the solar return chart. You take the degree of the MC for that and add it to Jupiter and minus MC Sun. So MC, but this MC is the natal MC. So the relation of the natal MC and the solar return MC for the year uh, actually has a meaning.
Were these mundane parts used quite a lot, considering you're talking about conquests back in the day, whether it was invasion of lands or an invasion of territories and battles? So I would imagine the mundane parts being quite used a lot.
So this year, for example, in Iran, we had in the equinox chart, uh, the degree of the ascendant was 22 degrees of Cancer, and Mars was exactly there, and it was the same degree of the chart of the supreme leader. And then we had the war, and the rest of the stories.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, so the moon and charts are very also important in medieval astrology, Persian astrology. Yeah, so these are the charts for Horary, urgent wish, time of attainment, information true or not, injury to business, uh, freedmen and servants, so lords and masters, marriage, and many other things listed here. And these are the part of the foods, olive oil, honey, sugar, and all these. Uh,
I might
so
have to use
uh,
those ones for my next meal.
yeah, can create some kind of oatmeal using these materials. Uh, well, it's really interesting. In some parts of history, we have stories that the kings were so obsessed in uh, astrology. So the king wants to eat some watermelon, for example. Then the doctor says watermelon is doesn't good for you at this moment. And the astrologer was saying doctors are not eligible at this moment. So it was a very funny story. Always the doctors and the astrologers and the ministers. So astrologers could really could easily disqualify others vote without the any problem. So they were, they had to answer every question and every request. So they made all these rules.
That's fascinating because historically you might have kings who would want to be disposed by a family member, so they would try and poison maybe the food. So maybe they would have to ask, what's going on with the food, or have a servant eat the food first in front of them, so to know whether it's not poisoned or not.
Yeah, exactly. So there are some stories that the astrologers saved the kings by actually asking them not to eat the food, or the wine might be poisoned, or their life is in danger. So there are some stories about the Puran daughter. He was the wife of Mamun, the Abbasid Caliph, and he was also the granddaughter of Nobacht, the one who laid the foundation of Baghdad, find the time for laying the foundation of Baghdad. And then he had a son named Sahl, and he had a son named Hassan. And Puran was the daughter of Hassan, and he was the wife of Mamun, the caliph, and she was the wife of Mamun, the caliph, and she saved Mamun several times. Gave her the information of the times that his life was in danger.
Wow. That's an incredible story. That's incredible.
Yeah.
This is going on a tangent, but what do you make of the astrologers who were part of the foundation of Baghdad? Because of course you had a very strong Jupiter on the ascendant, Sagittarius. I think you had Sun in its joy in the ninth. But what do you think they thought about with that Mars in Gemini in the seventh? Do you think they had no choice and they just tried to do the best they can? What are your thoughts about the foundation of Baghdad,
Well,
Jawad?
I believe that actually putting Jupiter in the first house was their first thing. And,
Ah,
they couldn't actually lose the time. They couldn't actually wait too much. For example, Saturn was retrograde, and Saturn was very far away from Jupiter. If they were waiting for Saturn to become direct, then Jupiter was turning retrograde. So uh, they didn't have
so
any
they had some time
chance for.
restrictions, time restraints to get that put together.
Yeah, and there is some more thing. For electional astrology, sometimes I notice that we might be very obsessed in elections uh, for finding a good time. Uh, well, actually, we should see seven factors in electional astrology: uh, moon, uh, its sign, its placement, the ascendant, its ruler, and the planets in the ascendant. And the house signifies the matter, and the planet signifies the matter. So having all of them well placed and be uh, out of reach of malefics and well aspected. So it's very hard to find such a combination. Maybe 5 or 6 months you need to find such a time. And but then I worked on that, and I saw a lot of election times, the enthronements, the time of attacking to the other countries, the conquerors, the time of travels, and then I noticed that actually they simplified that, and then actually, then later I created a model. I called it agile elections, like the agile methodology of computer management. So we can be, I noticed they were not that much obsessed in that. And then, as they were using the electional astrology for every day, so they were very aligned with the good times. So I noticed that actually, if we break down the timings of our events, we can get more better results. And then the Psalms, the parts are very time sensitive because if our ascendant is not correct, it changes. So we should have a chart, a rectified chart, or very trustable chart because they're time sensitive. And the house systems, as you mentioned, is also important because sometimes we change the houses, but we should, as we use, for example, the essential dignities, we can actually trust the Sahams for the whole sign houses as well. And sometimes we have different formulas for one subject. Sometimes we have single formula for several subjects. So the part of, let's say, uh, the, the let's say the part of travel might be very similar to the part of learning, for example. And so both of them are on the exact same point because both of them consisted from one, uh, two or three exactly the same objects. And sometimes we have controversial concepts at the same place. So, for example, a part that signifies a very bad situation is exactly on the degree with the part that signifies a very good situation for the same subject, or yeah, something like this. So, uh, these things actually are the problems we may face in different delineations, and it needs, we need check hundreds of charts, a certain part in hundreds of charts to become master in delineation. In Persian astrology, we have some linked techniques, Fardar or Firdaria and Tasyir. Tasyir is a general term which is actually covers all the transits, progressions, perfections, not that perfections, transits, progressions, directions, zodiacal releasing, and all these are called Tasyir. And we have intaha or perfections, we have tahwil or the returns, and the cycles or door. Thousands, it's very interesting. It's a mundane technique that every 1,000 year we go one sign, and every 1,000 year we go one degree. And at this moment, you say, okay, 1,000th year, who can calculate all these? But interestingly, astrologers actually calculated from some epoch. They found some epochs that was some uh, 185,000 years ago, and they actually tracked that thousands
Oh,
for this.
wow.
Specifically, even the Zoroastrian astrologers use that. And the conjunctions, which is a very vast topic. Conjunctions of when we say conjunctions, we or qaranat, we usually use Jupiter and Saturn conjunction, which is the most important conjunction. So this is my personal chart, and I had another version. Maybe yeah, okay. This is my personal chart, and you see that my part of unseen. Actually, this is a symbol I made up. We don't have this symbol for part of unseen. I made it up. We have here Mercury a part of unseen, and actually it's somehow in the midpoint of Mercury and Saturn. Uh, and it's very interesting. It was very useful for me because actually I reached to several layers of Persian knowledge and esoteric knowledge and different knowledge that nobody else had access before. So it was a thing. Actually, I was very lucky that you know, and many years ago, like in 2005, I didn't know that Persian astrology exists. So I invited to India, and uh, it was very accidentally they invited me to talk, and it was just 1 week before the event, and I didn't have anything in my mind to say. Then I just took a Persian astrology book that I recently bought, and I said, okay, we'll find the subject in that book. Then I find the subject, and it was very interesting for Indians because it was very similar to one technique that we have in Vedic astrology, but it was a Persian edition of that technique. And then that actually it was the very beginning of my journey into Persian astrology. Then I invited to South Africa, and then from South Africa, I met Robert Hand, and we spoke about Fardar, and uh, my colleague Richard Fiedler invited me there. And there, a colleague, Komila Satan, a very pioneering Vedic astrologer, told me, Ehsan, you should go and work only on Persian astrology. Uh, Forget about Vedic astrology. We have many Vedic astrologers in the astrological society, but in Persian astrology, you have unique sources and you should go through that. And actually, Robert Hand, Richard Fiedler, and Komila Satan encouraged me that time to do that. And then actually, there I met uh, Alexander Mshiragic next time in India, and then actually he invited me to United States. So it was 2015, and then it was a golden year for me. The time that actually I discovered Persian astrology, and the time
Wow.
I had all these travels, and all these happened to me. And interestingly, the ascendant of Alexander was around this 17 Leo, and David Cochrane has Pluto on the same degree. And as soon as we met, David and I made a partnership for my software, and it was a very interesting year. So it's the solar return of 2015 for me, and as you see, uh, let me show you my own chart. The ascendant is almost the same as my own ascendant, but the part of fortune and part of unseen are exactly on my descendants. And Saturn, my ascendant ruler, uh, in both natal and solar return chart is exactly on the MC. So it was a wonderful year for me, according to this combination which we are talking about. And then it was also the profection of the ninth house, Scorpio. And it was a time that actually I traveled in many countries that year. Uh,
It's
different,
fascinating. Just going back to your natal chart, I love this chart. So natally, we've got, you've got this wonderfully exalted Saturn. We can combine the eighth in quadrants, and we can take the ninth of the whole sign. So you've got this chart ruler, wonderfully exalted Saturn. If we take the whole sign, it's kind of a stellium of the ninth. You've got the part of fortune. The Mercury is dispositing that and has the connection with the part. And then as you go into your solar return, just how close those angles are. You've got 18 degrees Aquarius, well, nearly 19 degrees Aquarius, but the solar return was it 16 of Aquarius? The solar return?
yeah, exactly.
Wow. So so that solar return for that year, the angles were lining up, and with the Fadar or the Fadaria, here we've got an exalted moon in the solar return, and you've got the Saturn connection straight right on the midheaven, and of course the part of Spirit and Fortune connected. What a wonderful, what a beautiful year that is.
Yeah, exactly. So you see
Wow.
the power of Fardar, solar return, and the parts and perfection at the same time, how they are
Wow.
linked and how all of them hand to hand helps something happening.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing this example. This is fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. So this is a chart of this Leonardo DiCaprio, and we know that actually it was a very interesting story about him that he was all the time candidated for the Grammy, but he was not announced as a winner. So for several years, everybody was expecting him to win, but he didn't win. And then in 2016, finally he won the Grammy, and it was his year that part of fortune and part of unseen both are on his ascendant.
Ah, wow.
So I have the bigger picture here. His ascendant of the solar return is 16 Virgo, and part of fortune is 20 Virgo. Part of unseen is 12 Virgo, in 4 degrees to the ascendant. So he finally won the uh, Grammy, and it was one good example. And then we go to we're going to study the part of marriage. And here we have actually two major formulas, marriage for men according to Hermes and according to Vitus Valens. So we have two formulas. One is Venus and Saturn, and the other is Venus and Sun. So as Donald Trump had three marriages, is a very good example to study the three marriages of him. Uh, Before I go to the other areas, part of friendliness or the part of Venus on 26-degree Leo. So it's exactly on his Mars, and Mars is in the first house. Why I say the first house? Uh, there's a rule that actually the 5 degrees above the ascendant are called the corpse degrees or the dead degrees. So these 5 degrees belongs to the first house. This is for the all the quadrants, and some astrologers actually take them for all the cusps, but usually we take them for the quadrants only, the 5 degrees. So uh, Mars is 3 degrees apart from the ascendant degree, and the part of friendliness or friendship is on his Mars. So at one glance, actually, he has a part of friendship in the first house, and again, actually, it's on the Mars. So he makes good friendships, and sometimes actually turns into a tragic end. So we, for example, can see how Elon Musk becomes the most actually his best friend, and then out of sudden, actually, this two, and this happened in several other. As far as I follow the news, I see that it happens in several cases. Uh, Even when he meets a politician, he says, "Let me see if I like him or not." It's very personal for him, and it's this part of friendliness on the Mars. And then the part of marriage is on the first house. So he is a man of marriage. And this part of poorness and richness, I mentioned that actually it's a part of poorness and richness, is exactly on the first house. So he's very rich, everybody knows. Uh, and the other part of marriage, according to Wallis, which is Valence, is 2 degree of Libra. So one part is to Libra, and the other part is 1 degree of Virgo. So let's see how these three marriages goes on. The first marriage, 7 April 1977, with Ivana. It was the father of Mercury and Venus. Venus itself promises the marriage, and Mercury, let's see how it works. So the part of marriage is very close to the first house, within 1 degree. It's 24 degrees, and the ascendant is 25. And it's in the sign of Libra, Venus again. And then Mercury is actually, if I go back one slide here, Mercury is the ruler of the natal part of marriage. The natal part of marriage here is Mercury. And then the profection sign is Aquarius, which is the natal seventh house. And natal part of marriage is one Virgo, and the return part of marriage is 28 Virgo. So both of them are in the sign of Mercury, and it's in the father of Mercury, Mercury activated. And Saturn is the seventh lord, also enters Leo, although it's just the beginning of the Leo, but it's Donald Trump's uh, ascendant. So the transit of the seventh lord over the first lord, over the first house, is also connects the seventh house to the first house. So we have many factors that actually shows the marriage here. And for the second marriage, actually, he has a father of Saturn and Venus. Again, Venus, and again, Saturn as the ruler of the natal seventh house. Part of marriage is 16 Aquarius. Aquarius is the natal seventh house. And then the profection sign is Gemini, which his natal Saturn and Venus are there. And also Gemini is the seventh house in the solar return chart. So if I go back to his natal chart, Venus and Saturn are here. Sorry, I made a mistake here. Okay, this is wrong. Actually, his natal Venus and Saturn are not in Gemini, but Gemini is here actually, uh, the seventh house.
Yep.
And the third marriage was in January 25. It was in the father of Jupiter, Mercury. So Mercury is the natal ruler of the part of marriage, and the perfection is again on the Gemini, and uh, we have Venus in Gemini, Venus activated here. Mercury is the ruler of a natal part of marriage, which was here, uh, part of marriage in the Virgo, and ascendant of this year is exactly on the part of marriage of natal. Ascendant is 3 degree of Virgo, and it's on the part of marriage here. So this part of marriage of Hermes works very well in all the marriages of Donald Trump. Actually, I had another analysis which I had all his sons and daughters and divorces, marriages and divorces in a timeline with further. I don't have here because I didn't think actually we can have time to analyze
Sure.
that. But it's very fascinating that it's like working all the time.
Fascinating example here with Trump. Now, do you think I know his second marriage was the least successful one in terms of longevity. I think his first marriage, he was married for 15 years. The second marriage was only married for 6 years. Do you think maybe having a malefic involved in that period may have had an issue? Because natally, his Saturn is not in fantastic shape. So I wonder if having a malefic there maybe had an issue for that second marriage. And of course, his marriage right now is his longest. And we've got that Jupiter
Well, the second,
Mercury piece, I
yeah,
think.
yeah. The second marriage actually had K2, South Node, on the seventh cusp.
Ah, mm. So the combining factors that this one wasn't was the least successful out of the
Yeah.
three. Fascinating.
Yeah. So it was the actual presentation. And if you have any further questions or further discussions, I'm happy to answer.
So, Asan, thank you so much for a brilliantly put together presentation and for sharing your insights and wisdom. Thank you so much. So, switching gears now onto your incredible work. Not only are you a pioneer in Persian astrology, but I believe you're involved in the translations of a lot of text that is not right now available to the Western world. Would you like to talk about some of the work you've been doing?
Yeah. Uh, you know, it's really amazing. The Persian language of, actually, it's said that if we speak to Khosrow Parviz, the last king of Sassanid times, before the last king of ancient Persia, before fall of ancient Persia, uh, if I speak to him, he can understand like 80% of my language. So, despite other languages, the Persian language actually stayed very constant. It had some changes, but the structure is the same. So, I'm very fortunate that I can read ancient Persian and Arabic texts very easily. So, I didn't know how valuable is this for the astrological society that actually we can easily find all these manuscripts. So, I gathered thousands of these kind of manuscripts from everywhere, and at at that time, I didn't have a scholar attitude to note all the details. So many things actually I had in my slides. I even don't know what was the source. I should go and search back to the materials, and because I was just crave for learning. But later, I started to note and take notes and write down the exact sources. Then I noticed that my journey started with Robert Zoller. That I attended a diploma course of Robert Zoller, and there actually he talked about Biruni and Abu Mashar, and then I noticed that okay, he quotes just few verses or few pages of Abu Mashar or Abu Rayhan Biruni, but I have full books of them, so hundreds of pages of them and five, six titles of each of them, and it was very amazing. Another story I followed is that I couldn't find many important answers. There are some very fundamental answers that no astrologer ever explains. And I was going to the roots. And then I noticed that these are not mentioned in any astrology book, but they are mentioned in astronomy books. So I became interested to learn ancient astronomy as well. And then when I noticed, for example, how they were extracting the planetary positions from some text and tables called Zeege, I noticed, wow, it's a very fascinating world. And it's not just, knowing the longitude and latitude of the planets. In modern times, we usually 99% rely only on the longitude of the planets. But they could easily see the planets in different coordinations, not only the real astronomical coordinations like equatorial, azimuthal, or ecliptical, but they could also use some epicycles, and they could imagine every planet is moving into some cycle and another imaginary circles like the apogees and different epicycles. So they could actually track their motion, their speed, their light, increasing of light, increasing of the speed, increasing of degree, and decreasing of them had some meanings to them. So then I noticed that actually these terms are omitted, eliminated from astrology practice because we didn't know how to calculate them, we didn't know how to use them. And then astrolabe, and even many constants of astrology. What is when we say a plant is fast moving or slow moving? What we really exactly say? Because we usually actually compare the speeds as we know today, but they had different formulas about the fast moving and the slow moving. Or, for example, the way they calculate the solar returns are different. And for the solar return of the year, for the mundane use, actually they had the middle of the world. They had a certain longitude and latitude as the middle of the world. So the chart for that place is the chart for the whole world. So, these are all the matter, all the subjects that actually we usually don't know. And the models of calculation and the way they were thinking, they had different models of thinking about the subjects. And then I tried to learn that from their perspective. So, and we have thousands of tables that we don't know how to use them. For example, I want to refer to something that recently discovered by our colleagues as zodiacal releasing signs. So we always had this table in our books. Uh, and as I said, it's a kind of tasir, which is a kind of progression, perfection, and all these models at the same time. But the table was there and nobody was using. And then we see that our Hellenistic colleagues found that. And then actually, we also have it in the medieval references, but without explanation. So uh, there are many of the kind of tables, many kind of dignities. We have a model that we consider 177 kinds of dignities for every planet. 177. It's
That's a lot. So much information to digest, and as you go back through the centuries. Now, we touched upon about during the presentation some of the Persian techniques. Now, in the courses at Kepler, are you going to be incorporating some of the Persian techniques into the class?
Yeah, exactly. What I'm going to do is to explore the whole materials we have. I categorize the whole materials um, that we have. We go and explain some of them. What tables do we have? And then actually we study. I'm very hopeful that we can create our own horoscope books as like as those who like the kings and nobles had. So when the king orders the astrologers to actually create their horoscopes, astrologers come and compile a big 100-page set of calculation materials, different kind of calendars, different kind of calculations, how they extracted the detail of planetary positions, and then they were rectifying the charts, the prenatal epoch, the prenatal charts, and then they were calculating all the sahams for the chart and the prenatal chart and all the fixed stars for all of them. And then they were creating the tables of Fardar progression, perfections, and many of the other different things. Even we have the aspects on the horizon, not aspects on the zodiac. So sometimes you see this phenomena. You go to the uh, outdoor and you see sun is here and moon is here, and how you know that they are in a square, but when you look at them you're quite sure that it's not a square, it's more than a sextile. And you get confused because it's more than a sextile, you can see that. But in the calendar it's a square because it's from the point of view of you, it's a sextile. So we actually adjust the sextile and that is square in the formula. And we also use that specifically in progressions. And also for some, we have some magical techniques of medieval magic, like the magical squares, like the talismans and all these. So they are also related to some certain kind of this model of aspects rather than the regular aspects.
Wonderful. I'm
So
sure our students are very much looking forward to those classes. Wonderful. And a couple of more questions I've got here is that, of course, you're very adept at Vedic astrology. And what can you explore maybe some of the intersection and influences of the Harappan Indo regions on the medieval Persian Arabic astrologers? Your thoughts on that?
there is a very fascinating story. When Akbar the Great, the uh, Mughal Empire, was born, his father sent one astrologer there named Molana Chand to record his birth. So Molana Chand goes there and waits for the moment of birth. Then he measures the altitude of Sirius using the astrolabe, and he writes the report according to the altitude of Sirius, which is 36 degrees. Um, he has the ascendant of then the trick is here. He was very bad luck because the ascendant was exactly like the Donald Trump. It was the same degree of Donald Trump, 59 degrees, or the 0 degree of Virgo. So it was the time that astrologers came into rectifications. So four astrologers came, two Vedic astrologers and two Iranian astrologers. Amir Fatullah Shirazi from Shiraz, Iran, and Maulana Chand, the Indian astrologer, and Nilakanta, uh, the Jyotish Raja, and another one named Maulana Elias Ardebili from Ardebil, Iran. And these four casted four charts of him. Two are tropical and two are sidereal, to use whole sign system and to use the uh, different quadrant systems. So they rectified. Three of them found it Leo, one found it Virgo, and each of them gave a few pages of interpretations of the planets, four different set of techniques. Uh, and all of these are recorded in a book named Akbarname. Some 50 pages are about the horoscope of Akbar. So Akbar, from some 15th century up to 18th century, up to 19th century actually, Farsi was the lingua franca of India. The official language of the court was Farsi, and many of the Vedic books and many of uh, the Vedic literature actually translated to Farsi. And we have many books, several books on nakshatras, for example, which doesn't exist in English, but we have them in Farsi. And then it was a very deep relationship between Iranians and Indians at that time. So yeah, we have a huge treasure of Persian astrological work, which was combined with Indian methodology there. For example, we have it's like some kind of Islamic thoughts where, because the Muslim community was very large in India. So, for example, instead of mantras, they write the Quranic verses for the nakshatras. It's very funny, the mantras of the nakshatras, there's in the Quran verses, Arabic for nakshatras. But we have such combinations also there.
No, absolutely fascinating, and it's going to be so interesting to follow your work, not only now but for the coming years, and just the wealth of knowledge and all what you've put together. So, lastly, you're also going to be conducting, I believe, a webinar, and is it going to be the astronomy of medieval astrology? Is that correct, or is that the title?
Yeah, exactly. It's a treasure of medieval astronomy.
Ah,
Because
wonderful.
when we want to learn medieval astrology, we should know how actually medieval astronomy, because it was the same. At that time, astrology and astronomy was the same science, and then later it started to become separate. So many of the things that we think that actually should be part of astrology are in the astronomical works, and many techniques that was eliminated, even in translation. Sometimes we read some terms in astrology books, we don't know what that term means, and we just imagine it might be this, and we simply miss the real meaning for that. So on the 13th September, I will have the treasure of medieval astronomy webinar. And There, I'm going to actually explain the different areas of. I will talk about the astrolabes. I will talk about the calendar, and no offense, but actually, I always say that in the West, in the modern West, we don't have a calendar because actually the definition of calendar today is the system of tracking days, months, years, and uh, this is not the definition of calendar in the East, and this is not the definition of calendar in the medieval times. Because the calendar of medieval times, for example, had two pages, solar page and the lunar page.
Oh,
So in the
wow.
solar page, we had some columns about the solar things and the planets, and the lunar page, we had all the things related to the moon. And each column has some astronomical data and astrological data in that. So the calendar is something totally different. But unfortunately, today uh, even we haven't seen that kind of calendar. So uh, if we revive the tradition of calendars, it will be something huge for the uh, astrology community.
Wonderful. And I think that's why Kepler is so excited for you to be part of the family, to bring Western astrologers the knowledge and the eventually the translations from the East and to enrich astrologers in the West and some of the history and the knowledge and where we get different terms from. And very lastly, for everybody watching, Ehsan will be teaching medieval essentials, and that will be beginning October 16th. Is that correct?
Tour 19, I guess. Yeah.
Sorry, October 19th. So for everybody watching, I'll put a link below this video in the description and comment boxes, and everyone can go down there to sign up for Asan's class. So again, Asan, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us your time, going through a fantastic presentation. It's been an absolute pleasure. And again, we're very, very excited for you to be part of the faculty at Kepler College for the new medieval Hellenistic certificate. So thank you so much and our gratitude.
Thank you so much. I'm really delighted.
Cheers. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you again next time. Goodbye, everyone.